these 2 weeks, and I sort of set things up in last week's call too, this is so much about Venus. It's so much about relationships ending, new relationships beginning out of the blue. We're continuing that cycle that the full moon in Aries kicked in last Friday, but it becomes even stronger. And don't forget, relationships does not just mean romance, although it can definitely include that, but it can mean business relationships of all kind. It also rules money, finance, your sense of self-worth. And this is just, we're in a massive sea change here, because the eclipse that comes up on the 14th is in Libra, the sign of relationships. It's at 21 Libra. And it's partly a really big deal because, you know, there's 4, sometimes 5 eclipses a year. So it's not like eclipses themselves are that unique, but every one of them is different. And this one happens to be on top of this point that's called the South Node of the moon. And the South Node is your past. It is either past lives, or it's what you've outgrown, and yet you're still, you know, literally wedded to, sometimes literally, or just wedded to energetically. But the South Node rules what you may just still be clinging to like crazy. And yet the North Node, the opposite, is where you're headed. The North Node is the highest evolution of the soul. So when we're always talking about where's the soul's highest evolution, that's the North Node. And then there's the South Node holding all these energies of attachment. Now, attachment isn't always bad, but if attachment is keeping you in that place of stuckness, and you know it is time, it has been time to move on, these eclipses are going to hit like wild. And so this can certainly mean, if you're in a relationship that you've been knowing for months or even years on end, oh my God, it's time to get out. It's outgrown. It's stagnant. Your soul isn't flourishing on any level. The eclipse will often bring an event external that, you know, the mind can be saying, why is that happening to me? Or why did they leave me for someone else? Or, you know, why did I discover that they're cheating? Or it can bring certain things sometimes that are just the eclipse saying, this has been outgrown forever. You weren't willing to leave on your own. We're going to bring you something insane so you finally get out. So it can bring things like that, but it can also just bring mutual recognition that something, you know, needs to transform its shape out of a relationship into a friendship. It can bring that. And like I say, this can also happen with business relationships as well. But this eclipse is no joke, because not all of them are on the South Node, ruling all of that karmic backlog. In fact, there have been questions that have come in, you know, sometimes where somebody says something like, this person's terrible for me. You know, I'm always depressed when I'm around them. I'm not in my power. I'm always, you know, exhausted. And yet they're so familiar, I don't feel like I can leave. That is a real South Node situation. They're familiar because who knows how many hundreds or thousands of lives you may have had with them. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily for your soul's highest evolution now. I mean, if you're in something that is for your soul's highest evolution, the eclipse will certainly not end it. But if it's anything other than that, it can really, really bring that up. And I'm mentioning that so that, you know, you have that. There's a line. It's a little gruesome. Some of you have heard me say it before, but it's one of the people that taught me astrology in my 20s. She used to say, you know, eclipses will only bring the dead bodies out of the situation. And in the sense, it's like a relationship that has been over for a long time finally gets acknowledged. But one of the other things happening is Venus, you may remember this because we were dealing with Venus all summer. Venus is getting ready on October 6th. So what day is the 6th here? It's on Friday. Venus is finally going to leave its shadow. So this whole passage that happened all summer, starting back in the middle of June, Venus went forward and backward and whatever. Venus is now finally finished traversing all the ground that it did throughout the summer, and it's about to go into new terrain. And what that means is, if all summer you've been vacillating about somebody, is it on, is it off, do I have the courage to go, do I not, whatever, as Venus leaves its shadow and starts to go into new land, you may get crystal clear. So that's a very strong thing, combined with the fact that anyway, these eclipses start to come on October 14th. And so if you're not clear by the 6th, a week later, the eclipses come in and clarify things even more.